Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. We have the stock market that saw a little bit of a cool off today in terms of a correction and then kind of stabilizing towards the end of the trading session. With Palantir Technologies down about 1% on the day, finding a resistance at that 20 and really closing at 1977. Now, we've talked about Palantir and what we're seeing in terms of the article, and I think the outlook on Wall Street in terms of the macroeconomic environment is possibly a shift in perspective. So we're going to be talking about this. If you're new to the channel or a returning viewer, hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos, and of course, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just collecting the data and dispatching it to you. Now, if we look at Palantir Technologies and where we're sitting right now, we saw that breakout above the 20s and actually being able to hold there, hitting that 52-week year-to-date high. What we're seeing is resistance and a little bit of a correction right here in terms of Palantir, even finding bottoms here at about 1935, but nonetheless still holding support at 19s. However, what we're seeing is Wall Street analysts and in terms of investment change and actual bullish perspectives switching to the bearish potential and the amount of options volume. And if we look specifically here at Palantir, in terms of the volume that we've had for expirations tomorrow, we have over 25,000 in terms of the $19.50 strike price. And this is actually outbeating in terms of volume the amount of calls that we have right now at the $20 strike price. So what we have is a change in shift, and possibly could there be future decisions by the Fed that could really impact the market. And is Wall Street getting too far ahead of itself? That's what we're seeing in terms of this rally that we've seen in November. And the question is, when will this correction come and when will we see a little bit of a pullback? And talking about that and what we've seen with Palantir are actually some decent amount of bearish articles that are released. Basically one here by saying on Seeking Alpha that the party is over, summarizing that the revenue growth is slowing and market saturation is becoming a concern, talking about how the company's profitability has remained positive, but the valuation perhaps is more expensive now. We do know one thing for sure is that the valuation has always been expensive. We know it's been trading at a premium, but like we've said and what we've been saying for a while is a correction would not be surprising considering the Q3 rally that we've seen continue. And with this being said, what we've seen is a very expensive stock, especially in the early stages. And even though Palantir has been along for a long time, it's really only been publicly traded for about 3 years, and the stock has been rated in many different ranges, from a buy to a hold to a sell. But talking about this, people seem to be taking some profit taking and being public about taking some profit taking with Palantir, and talking about that and sitting on the sideline and even using house money to sit in there in terms of long term, and people saying that they're locking in their gains here basically at $20 a share. What we do see, and this is also more of a bearish flip, is that Peter Thiel's, his LP here, sells 48 million in Palantir shares, as this is a capital fund and these shares were acquired over a decade ago, and what we're seeing is 48 million of those Palantir shares being sold. And Peter Thiel, if you guys don't know who that is, he co-founded Palantir 20 years ago, and this, like I said, has only been publicly traded for the last 3 years since 2020. So another bearish article that does come here. But flipping this in, looking at what Palantir is continuing to do in terms of the long-term growth perspective, I think is still looking healthy in my opinion. We got to remember that we've seen a rally not only for Palantir but for the market basically for a majority of November. So a little bit of a cooling off. We're seeing some other top blue chip stocks at their basically all-time highs. Nvidia is a great example, hitting at about $500, and we're seeing a little bit of cool off and resistance there. So talking about Palantir, one thing that they are doing is talking about going into orbit here with Meta Constellation. Now, Palantir offers this Meta constellation that harnesses the power of satellite constellations to empower decision makers back to Earth. Now, what Meta constellation does is integrate with sensor constellations in optimizing hundreds of orbital, terrestrial, and aircraft sensors, as well as AI models. And these platforms help users to ask time-sensitive questions across the entire planet. And the company also operates, of course, we know the Palantir AIP, which has really been a large, I want to say, trend factor that has brought a lot of attention to Palantir and has also led to great earnings reports like we've talked about before, talking about increasing clientele, diversification, and even growing in terms of the commercial revenue sector and the commercial customer sector, not only relying on governmental contracts. So where we sit with Palantir is between the bull and the bear case. And what we're seeing right now, and what I'm seeing personally, is this kind of bearish case that is taking over as we're seeing these articles right here. And this is where momentum can change quickly. Especially with Palantir, this is a very volatile asset and a speculative asset, to say nonetheless. And it does have an expensive price right now in terms of its valuation. And with that being said, at the end of the day, Palantir is going to be worth what investors are willing to pay for it. In the bull case is what we've seen Palantir is continue to release some great earnings reports. We've seen this with the fourth quarter of GAAP profitability that will bring criteria for the inclusion in the S&P 500. You also have the revenue surge here hitting 1.9 billion and up 23% from that previous year, and you have them collaborating with multiple different companies. And this bullish case is great because at the end of the day, customers and these contracts are what brings revenue and also brings demand to Palantir. And if we put that on the flip side and do acknowledge the bear case, because it is important, not things will always go up forever. We're going to see these pullbacks. We're going to see these corrections. And one of the big things to talk about that is the cash burns that Palantir goes through. People talk about this, and also talking about their valuations and talking about their growth strategy implementation. So with that, despite what we've seen, Palantir in the long term, I'm always sticking bullish on Palantir in terms of the long term. I think this company is a great leader in terms of competitiveness and also with the solutions that they're able to offer, even with a free trial for possible clients in terms of their AIP bootcamp. Over the next decade, I think they're going to be a leader in the AI sector. But however, what we have seen is this immense rally with Palantir after Q3 earnings. And yes, Q3 earnings were beat well, and we saw the guidance for 2024, especially even improved. But we have this large gap that shot Palantir to these highs. If there's any macroeconomic changes that could really impact possible interest rates for the next month, we could see a cool off among the whole stock market. Palantir could have increased volatility behind it, considering it's more of a speculative asset where it sits right now. But talking about long term, I think earnings are still going to continue to look well. Customers are still going to continue to come to the table. And Palantir has a great financial balance sheet. With the amount of cash that they do have on hand is over 3 billion and with really little debt. So with Palantir sitting right now, like I said, and where we've been sitting, I'm surprised we actually haven't seen a pullback thus far. And this rally has continued. We've been talking about this in the previous videos that Palantir is continuing to rally, and I'm surprised that we haven't seen a pullback. So could this be happening tomorrow for Friday or even the next week? Or could the rally flip again and continue as we could possibly see more momentum? I think the macroeconomic impact is going to have a large impact. Stay tuned. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out. We'll see what happens. Let me know what you think. Talk down in the comments.